All right. Welcome to the Due North Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Austin Schumacher, along with my good friend here, Alex Shanilak.
Hello.
Alex and I are good friends going back to the Lambda Chi Alpha fraternity at the University of North Dakota. Go Sioux. So just a quick introduction. Alex hails from West Fargo, North Dakota. I'm from Boise, Idaho. We've got a passion for Minnesota sports, specifically the Vikings, the Wolves, a little bit of Twins here and there when they're good. Attended a lot of sports games together over the years, but Alex can probably attest to kind of our record isn't so good.
No, it's not. We'll say from West Fargo, currently live in Grand Forks, so holding down the fort up in UND country here. But yeah, no, over the last 5 years or so, I think we're like 2-6. I don't know what that winning percentage is, but it's not great. So take our takes with a grain of salt.
And 0-2 in playoffs.
Yeah, that's right.
Vikings
the last two
playoffs.
Vikings playoff games. That one in Arizona last year was not a fun early flight home the next day.
No, it certainly wasn't.
But that actually came up recently, our bad luck, because I went to Game 4 of the Wolves-Nuggets series with my little brother, and at some point in the game, probably halftime, I think you texted me and said, I had a bad feeling about this when you told me you were going, that something bad was going to happen given our history. And then this was after Dante tore his Achilles, Ant hyperextended his knee, the sky was falling, we didn't know what was going to happen. And so, that's the type of pain we're used to dealing with when we go to games together. So not a shock. I will say, though, that game, the arena was buzzing beforehand. Everybody's amped. And then when Dante went down, you could hear a pin drop in there, and the energy got awful. And your brain immediately goes to that classic Minnesota negativity creeping in. Like, you've seen this movie before, you know how it's going to go. And then Ant gets hurt, and you're like, what do we do? And then the team started battling back, and the arena just got behind them, and it kind of just became, whatever else happens, let's just beat these guys. Like that'll be a win enough. And then, of course, we saw what happened the rest of that series. So good stuff.
Yeah, no, totally. That whole game was a very cool moment, how the team stepped up and rallied after those injuries. But let's get into some Wolves talk. So Wolves with a big 104-102 victory last night over the Spurs. Double-digit underdogs. I think the big storyline here is Ant makes a big comeback from that hyperextending his knee, and I think going into it, we didn't think we were going to see him till what, Game 3 maybe at the earliest, Game 4.
Well, initially coming out of the injury, I think there was some thought, certainly before we knew if there was ligament damage, is he going to also be done for the playoffs? And then later into the week, yes, they started saying like late in the series, maybe Game 4, and then over the weekend it was just like they changed him to questionable, and then it was like he wants to play today, and then it was like he's available, and it's insane. We're talking about 9 days from when he got hurt. So
Yeah, no, exactly.
just the fact that that's even a possibility, um, it adds a little wrinkle to this series that wouldn't have been there before for sure.
Totally. And I think it was a total team effort. Obviously, Ant gave them a huge boost coming off of the bench last night, but McDaniels continues to play well. I think Rudy had a great game defensively. Connolly back from the dead and hit some big time threes. A 4 for 7 from 3 point range, I think was a huge boost. And then Shannon, again, comes through in the clutch, and I think he's primary ball handler. I think he's going to be so crucial moving forward. What do you think about that?
Absolutely, especially considering Ant's situation right now, where he's on a minutes restriction, so and maybe that'll change, but he's not going to be out there to be the primary ball handler for half the game uh, when he'd normally be like a 40-minute guy. And Shannon is a guy that partially because we didn't get to see him play a lot this year for various reasons, but you think back to that Oklahoma City series, he had some good stretches in the playoffs last year that made us optimistic for this year. But he's also a guy whose handle I had some doubt in, and I think he had no turnovers in that game as lead ball handler. And uh, the fact that not only does it provide them with another ball handling option for when Ant or Mike can't be out there, but I also noticed even when Ant was out there, they were having TJ initiate a lot, and Ant could play off the ball, which some of that he's conserving energy, certainly. But last night, it was kind of, you know, he also, you could see, was kind of like, let's let TJ cook. And it was working. I thought at the beginning of the game, he gets blocked by Wemby, I think, on like the first two possessions. And I had the thought, this is not great, especially compared to what they came off of with no rim protection in the last series. Um, I thought TJ's not that guy. Then Bones would go in and try to do a layup multiple times. And you're like, what is going on? I thought this is going to be a problem. Well, then TJ, as the game goes on, just stellar. He kept attacking. He's so fast downhill, and he was undeterred by the blocks. I thought he was a little shook at the beginning of the game, and I was very worried about what that looks like. I thought there was going to be a lot of turnovers. I thought he was going to be in his own head. And by the end, he had made that adjustment in his mind of how to deal with Wemby being there, and I thought he looked fantastic. The fact that he had no turnovers, again, I just think that takes a lot of pressure off Ant.
Yeah, no, totally. And getting into Wimby, like you mentioned, obviously
12
the rim
blocks.
protect the rim protection is out of this world with the 12 blocks. I mean, arguably some of them were goaltending, but it seemed like we kept on attacking in the paint. They weren't really afraid. I think they do need to make some adjustments though with Wemby in there. But kind of what were your thoughts on that, Alex?
I really thought that we were going to struggle offensively because I thought coming in, you weren't going to be able to have the same game plan as you did against the Nuggets, which when it was working was attack and get downhill. And I thought with Wemby, that was not going to be an option. And if we were missing Ant and if we were missing Io for sure, and Mike can handle the ball, but then after Mike, you have Bones, you have TJ, you have Clark. Um, I was worried about that. And the other thing is our two best, this is assuming Ant wasn't going to play, our two best 3-point shooters, both in terms of volume and in terms of efficiency, are out. Dante's out for the season. Ant's out. The way to battle a rim protector like that is to be able to hit shots over the top, including 3-pointers. And so you go, well, the ball handling's a little more suspect. The shooting is a little more streaky. What's this going to look like? How are they going to respond? And of course, Wemby is a freak. He had 12 blocks, or 8 blocks, a foul, and 3 goaltends. But I what I found interesting was a couple things. One, they didn't let that stop them from continuing to attack. And it was kind of like, I mean, we saw late in the fourth quarter, there was a play where there was a block and it went into a Wolves guy getting the rebound and ended the possession in a bucket. And so, like, the block doesn't end the possession always. It's kind of like shooting a three and getting the long rebound type of thing. And they seem to have come to a place mentally where they're not going to let the fact that I might get blocked stop them from attacking. The other thing is they did many things to try to get Wemby out of the lane, from things like Julius setting a Gortat screen where he's screening Wemby, he's under the basket as Ant's driving to prevent Wemby from being able to defend the rim against Ant. I think they'll do more of that. They also went small for longer stretches, and they going small. They forced Wemby to guard. He'd be on Julius or he'd be on Nas or somebody where he has to go out a little more, and that got him out of position. And you saw that's when Shannon was in and attacking as well. So that surprised me. I didn't think those things were going to be that as profitable as they were. And of course, it helps. You mentioned Conley. He's hitting those threes. I think he needs to keep taking those threes. I think those threes are going to be there. And so he needs to keep hitting them. But he also looked, one of my buddies texted me and said, he looks like, I said, I said something like Conley's turning back the clock. And he's like, he looks like he's 32 out there.
Yeah.
Still
No,
a little
totally.
bit old, but he was quick. I've seen some takes, and I think they're good, that him getting traded and a salary dumped and cut and whatever else, I think ended up being a blessing in disguise, because you almost traded for both Io and a Mike Conley that's rested, because there's been times where you could just tell Mike's a little off, or it's not quite there, and he looks night and day. I mean, he looks like he's able to do this, so that's awesome to see.
Yeah, totally. And I think it was just so crucial that they got this game won. I mean, you talk about Wemby going 0 for 8 from 3. I don't think you're going to get that
And
for the rest of the series.
Fox went 0 for 4.
Sure. Yeah. No, that's a good point. And if you were to lose that game at the end of the fourth quarter, there, I think would have been just a huge downer for the rest of for the rest of the series. I think it was so crucial that they got this win. It gives them a fighting chance for the rest of the series here. So,
Absolutely.
what's your thoughts? What do you think about Ao? You think we have a shot to see him here soon?
It's hard to say. I Conspiracy hat, you would wonder. It's he's going to be a free agent. Uh, would it be the end of the world for everyone's last memory of you being, scoring 43 points in game 4, and then he had a decent game in game 5 that we lost, but kind of people are going to remember the playoff performance? I don't think he's that guy, but that puts a little bit of a wrinkle on if he's available. When do they throw him out there? I did see something that they changed his designation from like hamstring, listing the injury to maintenance on the injury, and it's still questionable, but that maybe that means he's going to play. But I would put uh I would put the odds on him playing tomorrow as a coin flip at best right now, and that's I don't have any information. That's just kind of the vibe I'm getting. Um, I really think it would be key to have him for as much of this series as possible, because uh, I think I think he would end up playing a lot instead of Bones, and I love Bones, but I don't know if this is a series for Bones. Um, Certainly, he can hit threes. He can be streaky, and you need that, but his ball handling style is a little hectic and makes me nervous in high leverage situations. And he his drives were much less profitable for the team than TJ Shannon's drives were. So if that's Io instead, and you have your Ant on a minutes restriction, and Conley, and Io, and and TJ, and then not to mention Julius will bring, Julius will initiate some, and Jaden will initiate some. They have different pros and cons with that, but that would be huge. I think they've shown they can manage without that, but um, San Antonio's got tenacious guys out there on defense. So the guards are who I'm most worried about, because once we get past the guards, there's size advantages almost everywhere. But I don't know. I'd love to see him back. If I had to guess, if he's gonna play at all, maybe they sit him one more and bring him back like for game 3 if he's close. But would love to see him out there as soon as he's available.
Yeah, totally. I'd be curious, what's kind of your thoughts on Jaden's role in this series? I think he had a very clearly defined role in the Nuggets series, where obviously game 2, he calls them out, says they're all bad defenders. He sets the tone, and not only does he talk the talk, but he walks the walk. He shows up time and time again on both defense, and had a career-defining series against the Nuggets offensively. It seems like a little bit of a different ball game for him. Like, is Wemby going to kind of cause some issues with those mid-range shots for him that he's so good at? Um, how do you see he's playing out for Jaden?
I think we're gonna see similar to the Nuggets. I think he's gonna build on that. He'll be asked to do less if Ant is available. Then because certainly once Ant was out and Dante, Jaden got a lot more ball handling responsibility. Um, and there's lots of things they can do with that. Last night I think he was 7 for 14, 16 points, 5 boards, 2 assists, a steal, a block. He missed both his threes. He's not hit threes well at all, but I think he's going to have the responsibility of locking down the lead guard again. That's Fox in this series. He shut down Murray.
But do
He
you
shut
see it
down
as an
Fox.
issue? Obviously, these guards much more athletic
Yep.
with the Spurs than what he was going up against with the Nuggets with Murray. Obviously, Murray's a great guard, but he doesn't have the quickness, the burst that these guys
Yeah.
on the Spurs do.
I do worry to that point. I worry a lot more about fouls. We saw it last night. Not only are these guys more athletic, because Murray thrives in creating that little bit of space in kind of the mid range and knocking down tough shots. He's not as much of a I'm gonna bully you and try to get to the rim and kind of finish through contact. These guys are like that, and I think like Castle, you could tell, was trying to play mind games with Jaden, and that works sometimes if you can get under his skin. And they're just more physical players than Murray, so it's a problem if Jaden gets into foul trouble, because then you're scrambling, because they do have several good guards on the offensive end. And when you take out your best perimeter defender, it gets tough. I think that's where you'll see Clark more, but Clark presents problems offensively compared to Jaden. You brought up his mid range. I actually think that shot, because of how tall he is, if he can create the space, that's a good counter to the deterrent that Wemby's rim protection presents. Because especially if he can get a switch and Wemby's not directly guarding him, and he's a man away, or he's a little bit away in the paint, and Jaden's guy, he can kind of shoot over just about anyone else. And he's been so money on that I think they have to keep that, even if it's just kind of the offense is stagnated, we need a bucket, let's go get one of those. I think they're going to have to do that with a lot of types of plays, because Wemby's also too smart to spam one thing over and over again. So they're going to have to, at times, I think, be very intentional in ways that we, especially during the regular season, don't see. But it's going to be a rock fight. I mean, compared to the Denver thing, where even dating back to last year's playoffs, you have these games with wild swings where teams up 20 and then they lose, or teams up 19 and they lose. This Spurs series, or this Spurs game, it was neck and neck all game. I think the lead was never double digits. I think I heard Britt Robson say on Dane Moore's podcast that there were 19 lead changes and 17 ties or something. It wasn't really until, the Wolves built a 9-point lead that they broke away a little bit, and then of course, that lead went away. I think it's important to note that the reason that lead went away in large part was because Edwards did not play well at all down the stretch after playing very well at the beginning of the fourth quarter. He had the turnover on the inbounds play, which led directly to a layup, and he had a couple of just bad box outs where he let Champagny get the rebound. And then even on that last play, he's kind of slowly coming up the floor. Champagny's his guy. He doesn't contest at all, gets a wide open shot. But I say all that to say, you could tell when they interviewed him after the game that he knew that they were this close to losing if that shot goes in, and he knew that it was his fault. And because I'll be honest, that shot went up. The Minnesota sports fan in me, I'm like, this is, I'm just like mentally
Yeah,
preparing to just lose it.
totally. And it was an
And
open shot. It was a great look.
yeah, I mean, I was like, this is exactly right. We piss away the lead and we lose on a three. I was just like, this is classic. And then it misses,
And
and you
I was
could
just
tell
gonna
Ant
say,
felt that too.
if they made that shot, I think it would have been a dagger for the entire series. That, like I said
Yeah.
earlier, if you don't come away and win this game after the fight you put up and having kind of a down game offensively from Wemby, but
And think about
um,
the how wide of a gap that ends up being. You go from what you just said, kind of feeling like now we got this huge hole to dig out of. You had a chance, you let it go. What happens? To not only do you win, I think they're supremely confident right now. And what I love to see is Ant manned up and took accountability. You could tell he felt it as much as everybody else, and he said, "I'll do better." And I think I think he means that, but I think he also knows it's important for his teammates to see him saying that. And I think he's grown into such a great leader. Um, his maturity on the court and with his teammates is fantastic because even just seeing him interact with TJ, it's like he more than anybody else wants to see TJ succeed. So Ant's awesome.
yeah, no doubt. Let's get into Chris Finch. You know, obviously, big upset in the first round, and they steal game one. He's gone back to back Western Conference finals, but seems to me Finch, who was some fans were calling for to be on the hot seat towards the end of the regular season. Obviously, they had a little bit of a down year, still got into the playoffs, but of course, we had some injuries and all that. But I think Finch is quietly making a case for one of the better coaches in Minnesota professional sports in our lifetime. I mean, in terms of just the pure playoff success, what do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to think when you think about consistency and the playoff success. I don't who even else would there be, because we've had good coaches, but at least on the Vikings side, the playoff success has never been there, and obviously on the Timberwolves side. Um, I thought it was interesting during that Nuggets series. Finch came out and said something along the lines of, the guys were telling us all year that they had a playoff switch and they were going to flip it. And he's like, I guess you guys lied. I think that was after game one. And
Yeah.
I thought that was an inch, he being a little tongue in cheek, but I thought that was an interesting peek behind the curtain, because that's obviously true. Like, the effort level they give in during the regular season is not this, but they felt they knew it was there, and I think they've shown that. But even to have that sort of relationship and trust in your players, it's so underrated, the relationship side of things. And I think a lot of fans, we don't get to see behind the curtain. We don't know what goes into what decisions get made about rotations or this and that. But we also don't see the fact that we don't see his relationships with the players. and I think he's got buy-in from everybody, and he's got to be in our lifetime the best coach. And like he's won now 5 playoff series since he's been here. I think he got hired in the 2021 season during the season when Saunders got fired. Prior to that, Flip Saunders won 2 playoff series in his entire tenure, and that's the only 2 playoff series the franchise had won. And now Finch has won
In the
5.
same season too, right?
Yes, yeah, that was the
2004. Yeah,
'04 Western Conference Finals run. Hang the banner. Um, but yeah, the adjustments he made when with dealing with all these injuries, I thought last night too in game one was a masterful coaching job. Just the way they defended Wemby, the game plan on both ends, uh, the rotation decisions. He kind of called out TJ Shannon in the media after game 5 of the last series, and whatever motivating tactic he was trying there, it clearly worked because since then Shannon has been unreal. And you're right. I mean, I'm somebody who, if you ask me on the wrong day, I have, not so nice things to say about Chris Mitch sometimes. But
sure.
on balance, I mean, he's one of the best coaches in the league right now, I think.
Yeah, especially with the playoff success, I would have to agree. But if there's a negative, I think there's issues with him getting consistent effort in the regular season.
Yeah.
I mean, it's kind of the classic. They play a team in January missing their star, and it should be an easy win. And it's kind of a classic trap game for the Wolves. And so I think it is a little concerning that he doesn't get consistent effort from these guys, especially during the regular season. But a guy that they'll step up for in the playoffs, I mean, is tough to move on from. So
Yeah. And on the effort thing, it is concerning because that's sort of the flip side of that whole coin is why can't you get these guys to give a damn on, a Tuesday in February in Portland or whatever? And
yeah,
they figured like they are an elite team in the playoffs. Part of that is just the experience and the battles these guys have gone through together, but part of it is whether it's them or him, whatever chemistry they have going on there, they do give a damn now. And it's showing every game.
sure. And so before we move on to the Vikings, you got any bold takes for game two predictions? Maybe bold takes, some key matchups, something like that.
Well, it's interesting watching the game last night. Uh, I didn't watch a ton of Spurs. I obviously watched when they played the Wolves, and you catch highlights and things here and there. So um, you go. A lot of their guys had rough shooting games, and you have a game like last night where obviously it ended up being a 2-point game, but without those lapses at the end, we win by probably 6, whatever. Um, you start to get confident because you're like, who we're better than these guys. Yes, they have Wemby, but who else am I scared of? But that's Fox had a poor shooting game. Uh, a couple Castle got in foul trouble, but was hitting shots. I mean, I I think I'm probably underestimating them based on that performance. Um, so I would expect better shot making from Wemby. I would expect better shot making from Fox. I would expect to see some sort of counters to what the Wolves are doing. But honestly, if I'm the Wolves, I keep doing what you're doing and it's working. And so I like gun to my head, the Spurs win tomorrow's game, but I would not be shocked at all if the Wolves pulled it off. And then, and then I don't even know where I don't even know where we go from there because uh that's just next level. But I don't I won't say I'm confident in that, but I would not be shocked. I'll put it at like 65-35 Spurs win.
Sure. All right. Well, let's get into a little bit of Vikings offseason recap so far. So obviously, we just had the draft. The Vikings took Caleb Banks at pick 18. My take on Caleb Banks is I like the swing. It's a huge gamble. Uh, you know, I don't think this was a very loaded draft class, and I think they got one of the few guys at that point in the draft that has the high end potential. That if you hit on this guy, you can get his health right. Um, he checks all the boxes in terms of being a Chris Jones type guy, big power rusher, can get off after the quarterback. Um, I think he can also eventually be good at the run, even though he kind of struggled at that in college. But to me, after that first pick, they were pretty conservative through the rest of the
Mhm.
draft, filled a lot of needs, made a lot of picks that made a lot of sense. But I really like that take on Caleb Banks that they took pick 18. What do you think?
Yeah, I'll be honest, I'm concerned about the foot injury. I feel like anytime you have a guy with that size and you want him to be this explosive player, and he has the timing of that injury, it sounded like it happened at the combine. Um, but you're right. If the foot ends up being fine, the talent level there was nobody else that they could take at that point. And I see the vision. I'm just a little bit concerned about the foot. And honestly, I would not have minded seeing them take one of those safeties they were looking at there, just considering uh, Harrison Smith's status being up in the air and how important that role can be in Flores' defense and how he can disguise coverages. That a lot of that hinges on having guys like Harrison Smith and Josh Metellus that uh, can do those things. And it's hard to know if you're getting that guy in the draft, but um, given all the moving pieces on the board on defense and given the cap issues, I'm not going to argue at all with taking that position there.
On the safety, I get what you're saying. It was a position of need, but I think we all still have a little PTSD from Lewis Seen in 2022. And I'd say this, Alex, the positional value of a defensive tackle is so much greater than a safety. I think you can find good safeties on the open market. You can pay them $5-6 million a year, and you can find guys that are going to fill holes. You're not going to find Kyle Hamilton, of course,
Yeah.
but they're not
Oh, they
getting
could
the
have drafted
Kyle
him, but
Hamiltons anyways. Caleb Downs, yes, that's true. Caleb Downs already went. I get taking a swing on him because he's more of a generational type talent at safety. But the guys that they're going to get in that area, I'd way rather take the swing on the defensive tackle because you talk about a guy. If you can get a defensive tackle that can get after the quarterback, that is going to attract double teams. I mean, a guy that positional value on the open market that's 25 million, $30 million a year if you hit on a Pro Bowl type player.
right.
Whereas a safety, even I mean, safeties get paid what, $15 million a year. So, and the value in the first round pick is really your option, getting them under team control for 5 years. I really liked the pick with Caleb Banks, but
Well,
Alex? What do you think?
I,
Sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, speaking of positional value and fifth year options, what would you have thought if they were to go wide receiver there? I know we've talked about this in the past, and you you were not a fan of that option, but honestly, you look at where the wide receiver market is and is heading. And Addison, we picked up his fifth year option, but if he has a good year, he's going to have to get paid. If he has a bad year, you have to replace him, or you have a decision to make anyway. Um, I I would not have I would not have hated a wide receiver. I'll put it that way.
Yeah, I would not have liked wide receiver in the first round. I think if you look at the roster top to bottom, I think wide receiver is one of the strongest position groups they have. You've got 2 first round picks invested in that pick in that position, and I don't think the Vikings are so loaded throughout the roster that they have the luxury to go, let's make a hedge bet against Addison not working out. I think that's trying to solve tomorrow's problem today, and I don't think they have that luxury. I mean, you just released Jonathan Hargrave, you just released Jonathan Allen, who both got a lot of playing time. And of course, we have Jalen Redmond, we got Levi Drake Rodriguez on that defensive line. But I think Flores' system is the most when you have a good rotation. And if you have another guy
Mm-hmm.
that can get after the quarterback, I think that would be huge. But the wide receiver, it still remains to be seen who's going to be wide receiver number 3, which is an important position in KOC's offense. And I get if you don't really trust the younger guys they have in that room behind Addison and Jefferson. I'd like if they go out and signed a veteran receiver, but I just think you've got too much invested already room to use your first round pick on that position again.
Yeah. Who if we didn't sign anybody, who would be Ty Felton?
Ty Felton was the
Ty,
third round pick last year.
yeah, no, I'm saying would he be wide receiver 3 right now?
I think so, but he just really hasn't proven much. Obviously, he got very little playing time last year, so he needs playing time, and I think that's one of the biggest issues with this team is they've been so hesitant to give younger guys like Ty Felton a shot. And of course, there's going to be growing pains there, but they need to work on developing these guys because, as we know, the Vikings are like by far the worst team in the NFL when it comes to developing and getting quality snap counts out of mid-round draft picks. I mean, the draft in the
Well,
mid rounds has just been a disaster for them the last few seasons.
well, and yeah, I was just thinking about like, they bring Adam Thielen back to be old and slow for a handful of games, and running back position is not young. Um, they were in a position, not to belabor the word, but they were in a position where they had needs at so many positions, that you can't fill them all in the draft. Because I was just thinking, like, you know, in a vacuum, using like a third round pick on a running back. Now this is a weak running back class, I know, but in any given year, in a year like this, um, just to try to take a swing at somebody, because after the top of the depth chart's old. There's been rumors about trying to get Achan from Miami or something, which I don't think is going to happen. It would be awesome. Um, but Ty Chandler hasn't really worked out. He's also not that young. Um, so there's lots of areas where either they need to to your point, let the younger guys try. Miles Price is another guy that, at the wide receiver position, maybe could turn into something. Um, but it's I think there's a lot of ways the draft could have gone where we'd be saying essentially the same thing. Like if they took a wide receiver in the third round uh instead of another defensive tackle, you'd go, well, we'd get excited, but we'd also say, well, we probably could have used another defensive tackle too. So when you're where
Yeah,
they are, it's hard to be you can't have everything.
yeah. And Caleb Banks, I feel like if Flores likes him, I like him. I think
Yeah,
Flores
absolutely.
has a very good track record of finding the guys that are good fits to his scheme, and they decided to go defense on for that first round pick. I think it definitely got Flores' blessing, and so I trust Flores. So I think it'll be a good fit for them,
In
pending
Flores we
his health, of
trust.
course.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, Alex, who's kind of your favorite mid-round pick, like second round on? Who would you say was it maybe a pick that stood out to you that maybe could make an impact for the Vikings here in the near future?
I liked the Caleb Tiernan pick in the third round. He's the tackle. Um, he's like 6'7", 323. Um, just the way the offensive line went last year, coming in thinking, we got Will Fries, we've kind of shored things up, we've got two great tackles, and it was kind of a disaster. The so I just like the idea of bringing in depth in general. You need bodies on the offensive line no matter what, but he seems like a guy with some upside. He seems like a guy who, with some utility, maybe you play him at guard a little bit, but having a guy who could come in and, O'Neal's got his injury history. And I worry about the offensive line. I'll put it like that.
Yeah. And I think we saw how important line depth is for this team. And I think it kind of was pretty disastrous to season last year. And, put
Well, that's not even getting
McCarthy
into
and then
the
Wentz in bad spot.
yeah, that's not even getting into the Darisaw thing, which is like, because he got hurt in October of 2024, and that was like Thursday night game against the Rams. I think everybody thought once he came back, he was going to be back, but that wasn't really the case. It just lingered, and it just
Correct.
makes you wonder. It makes you nervous that, especially those types of injuries, can do that. I mean, you even think soft tissue injuries in general. You look at Aaron Gordon on the NBA side. Is he ever going to be the same guy? Is he ever going to be able to put together long stretches of games? I don't know that we're there with Darisaw, but you worry about that. So having another guy to come in, another young guy, another cheap guy on a rookie deal. I'm not saying he's going to play at the level of Christian Darisaw or Brian O'Neill, but they had to do something to provide more depth there, because you get to the bottom of the barrel real quick with a lineman.
Yeah, no, totally. I think for my favorite mid-round pick, I think I'm going to go Dominique Orange, aka Big Citrus. I think I'm very excited to see Torres with a true nose tackle in his scheme. I think they've kind of just had placeholders there of guys like Jonathan Bullard, and I know they put Hargrave in that position last year, and he's more of a get after the quarterback guy and not really interested in stopping the run. I think them having a rotational guy for early that is really all about stopping the run and, can take up multiple blockers. I mean, I just think what that does for think about two guys in our lifetime of Linval Joseph and Big Daddy Pat Williams Wall, and
Yeah,
just in
yeah,
those guys did for stopping the run, taking up blockers, freeing up the linebackers to do their thing. I think if this guy can come in and be impactful as the nose tackle, I think that would just be transformative for Flores' defense. So
yeah. And when you look at coming out of those first three picks with two high upside defensive tackles, um, it's a big swing, but I like the potential that provides. It's exciting to think about, if those guys pop at all, uh, when you got Van Ginkel and you got Dallas Turner coming off the edge, that becomes a scary defense, or continues to be a scary defense.
sure.
It does suck losing Jonathan Grenard. Uh, and that's part of trying to shore up the front seven with these draft picks, I'm sure. But we haven't discussed that a lot yet. What did you think of the trade? I mean, it was clearly a salary cap related item. They didn't want to pay him what he wanted to be paid, but you look at the deal that ended up happening.
Yeah.
Could we have had him back? What do you think?
Yeah. So I didn't love the return for 2 third-round picks. I think he's somewhere in that 10 to 15th best edge rusher. And to me, that should be worth a late first round pick in my mind. I'm playing
Yeah.
Madden, you get a guy like that, you got to give up a first round pick. So I was a little disappointed to see 2 third round picks. And the other side that was a little bit disappointing is, there's all this talk that he wanted a new contract, and he was making on average about 20 million a year. And when he renegotiated with the Eagles after the trade, it ended up being at 25 million. And I was
Yeah.
thinking, there, when I heard he wanted a new contract, I'm going, this guy probably wants 35 million. Yeah, probably best to move on. And so it's a little disappointing when I think for what he can be, 25 million is not an unreasonable number for a high-end pass rusher like him. Now he is starting to get a little bit older. He's getting close to 30. I think he'll be 29 this season, and he's
And
had some injury
injury
history.
concerns.
Yep, correct. And he also he can get after the quarterback like no other, but it's always a little bit frustrating. He has a tough time wrapping them up and bringing them
Doesn't
down.
finish. Yeah.
It seems like more guys slip
He's
through
always
his
this
fingers
close.
than any guy in the NFL. Yes, correct. But even just being there makes a big impact. So we'll still give him credit there. But I think the biggest reason for this trade is to create salary cap space for 2027. And I think it's all about making room for a potential Kyler Murray extension. If Kyler Murray comes in, has any sort of success, anything close to what Sam Darnold did in 2024, there's no way in hell this team is going to let that guy walk out the door. They're going to sign him to an extension. I don't know what an extension with Murray would look like at this point in his career. It obviously depends on the type of season, but they probably got a budget for a guy that's going to want to make somewhere around 40, 45 million. So if you're going to be going with Murray long term, I think they still want to be able to fit that contract in and then still have some flexibility to sign some guys in free agency, just kind of depending on what happens next season and where they're at competitive wise. But how do you feel about the trade?
Yeah. Well, I agree with almost everything you said on the trade. Um, as far as it goes with Kyler Murray, um, I think that has to be their plan because if you don't, if you're bringing him in just to play for 1 year and you don't plan on potentially paying him, then what are we even doing? Because if they don't pay him, they're right back where they were. Because I got news for you, JJ McCarthy's not the guy. Uh, I I'm not a believer in JJ McCarthy. I was never really, but I bought into the hype, and and then you got that comeback on Monday Night Football. I believe you bought a jersey after that. Is that true?
Guilty as charged on purchasing a JJ McCarthy jersey for $250 after that Monday Night Football comeback.
Yeah. But and the reasons I'm out on him, it's not just the mechanics, it's not just the performance, and there are clear issues there. The reason I am out on him is I don't buy him as a leader. I don't buy him as the guy you want in the locker room leading your guys out of the tunnel. He's such a cringe person. The whole nine thing, uh, it's just kind of his whole persona, his whole vibe. And then you see him like he's in the suite at the Wild game and like trying to give a high five, and he's not the guy. He's not the guy. I've seen nothing to convince me that he can be the guy. Now, can he be a good quarterback in the NFL? Can he improve? Sure. And I'll be the first to admit I was wrong. But I don't think we've seen anything yet. And I don't think they bring in a guy like Kyler Murray after letting Darnold walk if they think that JJ McCarthy is the answer. Don't let's not forget they fired their GM. Why do you think they fired their GM? I think it comes down a lot to this quarterback decision. Um, his draft record is bad. You can get ins and outs. He's a smart analytics type guy. Uh, who became the bigger, more important personalities in the room? Was it KOC and Flores, or was it Kwesi? Did they agree on the quarterback? Who wanted Rodgers? Who wanted McCarthy? Did KOC want to develop a young quarterback? Um, Those guys are driving the ship now. They know if they screw this up, they're going to be out of jobs because it's on them. They're the decision makers. They're going to hire a GM now, sure, but the guy with the power in football operations in that room is KOC. Don't get it twisted. So I don't know. I there's a part of me that wishes we would have traded him prior to last season and franchise Darnold or done whatever it took there. There would have been some trade-offs with some of the other signings we made, but he had trade value. And now what would you get for him? A fifth?
Yeah, if you're lucky. And I think it's a little funny, KOC had had the famous quote that organizations fail young quarterbacks more
Yeah.
than quarterbacks fail organizations. And I think he's finding out exactly why that's the case, because if he has a bad year, McCarthy has another bad year and Kyler Murray isn't in town, KOC's out of a job. There isn't enough time to develop guys like this. And especially they didn't really do McCarthy they didn't do him any favors when they had such a loaded up roster. They went to the playoffs the season before. They won 14 games, and then they turn it over to McCarthy, who's never started in his life before, missed his entire rookie season, and they're putting it all on his shoulders. I mean, it's a tremendous amount of pressure on him.
Yeah, in fairness
And
to him, they threw him to the wolves. I mean,
yeah,
you want to talk
totally.
about organizations failing quarterbacks, that's part of it right there.
Yeah, correct.
But the other thing is,
Correct.
not to cut you off, but it reminds me of the great Mike Zimmer, who once said, did you want to see Kellen Mond play? And he said, not particularly. I see him every day.
Yeah.
I can't help but think that there's a little bit of that going on with KOC and JJ McCarthy.
Yeah, correct. So I think it'll be fun to see how Kyler Murray fits into this offense. Obviously, he's got the high end talent. I think if they can make it work, I mean, the sky is really lit. Really, there's still just like a lot of questions about the fit into this scheme. But he's got the arm talent. He's got the escapability.
He's got the
He's got to
weapons.
be able. Yep, he's got to be able to feed McCarthy or Justin Jefferson the ball. So if he can make it work, is the limit. But
Hey, let me ask you something. Do you think TJ
sure,
Hawkinson still has it?
out on TJ Hawkinson, I think Kirby Joseph ended his career that night in Minnesota a couple of years ago. He hasn't been the same since. I think he's been the paid tight end in the league since then. I think he struggles with separation. And, there was a little bit of an argument as that the Vikings had those offensive line issues early on last year, and they were using him more to block than to go down the field and catch balls. But he doesn't really have any ability to break any tackles, which you hate to see with a tight end. He struggles with separation, and even when he gets separation, I think he's dropped an alarming amount of balls. So I'm kind of out on
Yes.
TJ Hawkinson. I think they renegotiated his contract. This is basically his last year in Minnesota unless they come to an agreement on an extension, but I have a hard time seeing that happening.
Well, the reason I ask is because it still seems like when people talk about this team and they talk about the weapons this team has, he's considered to be one of those weapons. And certainly he still can be a weapon, but I just think the reality hasn't caught up to the perception yet that this isn't TJ Hawkinson from a few years ago. And
Yeah,
I think
correct.
the hype, it's still treated like we got two really good receivers, we got an awesome tight end. I mean, you could say the same thing about our running back room. Like we got a couple solid guys back there, but we're not, So, I I have concerns about how many weapons we actually have. Obviously, when you have Justin Jefferson, that makes things easier all over the place. But
Sure. So last thing, Alex. Just let's get a quick prediction as the roster is starting to come into focus. The draft just happened. He is mostly over. They could sign a few guys here and there before
Jawan
training
Jennings.
camp, but yeah, let's just get a quick record prediction from you before we sign off here.
Okay. I imagine we'll do a pick the schedule at a later date, but
Yeah.
I'm gonna go 11-6. 11-6.
Okay.
Playoff
I'm
team.
gonna go 10-7, and I think they sneak into the last wild card spot. So
I got one more thing for you.
sure.
What do you think? There's so many teams have some sort of tradition after a victory. Recently, when the Kings were good a couple years ago, they did the light the beam thing. That was pretty cool.
Yeah.
Um, we as the Vikings, this isn't just a victory thing. We do it throughout the game, but we have the skull chant. Have you
I think I
noticed?
know where you're going with this.
Have you noticed that the San Antonio Spurs have a post-game victory ritual that is eerily similar to the Minnesota Vikings skull chant, which I'll grant we took from the Icelandic national soccer team, but they gave it to us. There was a ceremony, it was a whole deal. I don't have a problem. Let me be clear. I don't have a problem with these sorts of things. Like Light the Beam was cool. It's fun. It gets, it's something to do. It gets people going. It's identical. They have a drum. They go boom, 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 boom. I don't know what they say. Do they say Spurs? I don't know. But it's gonna be wild. Like if they win tomorrow, I'm gonna be angry watching them do that after beating a Minnesota team. So it's not my favorite. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I'm not gonna me off when I was pissed when I saw that, and it's way too close. And I mean, at least we took it from Europe, but to take it from a
right.
different professional sport, it's way too close to home. I don't like it. They need to figure out their own damn chant, and it just motivates
And it's too
me
bad
even
because
more
I don't
for the
yet.
Wolves to
We're
pull.
at the yeah. We're at the beginning of this series. I don't yet harbor any like hatred towards them. I really like Wemby. I like the way he plays. Even, you can tell the types of things that will start to annoy you as a fan going on, like all these like the things that he's playing so well that it pisses you off. But he also doesn't complain a whole lot.
Yeah,
He has the right vibe. And they have a lot of guys that remind me of guys the Wolves have, just especially at the guards and the wings, just
sure.
guys that play hard. And so it saddens me that that's a little just it's too close. It's too close.
It's way too close. But so that's gonna wrap it up for us on the first episode of the Due North Sports Podcast. We appreciate you guys listening in, and we'll be back on the air in a couple weeks here, hopefully live. This is a recorded episode, but hopefully we'll be going live next time. We got cousin Greg, hopefully joining us next episode or the next two episodes. He's busy with planting out in the fields of North Dakota. But we appreciate you guys listening in, and until next time.
See you next time.